Okay, so good afternoon again. Thanks for taking time out of your day to join us for this webinar titled Sage Intacct Grant Billing for Nonprofits. Here's a quick look at our agenda for today's session. We're just going to start off with some introductions. Joe and I will give you a little bit about our professional backgrounds. Then I'll give you a brief overview on Carlson Management Consulting, followed by a brief overview on Sage Intacct. Then I'll hand it off over to Joe, who's going to lead us in the demo portion of the session. And after that, we'll definitely open up the floor for any questions. If you have any questions during the session, feel free to send them through the Q&A feature. Should be at the top of your screen. So to start off, I guess I'll start off. I'll give you a little bit about my background. My name is Guy Deosier. I'm an account executive here at Carlson Management Consulting. Been here for a little bit over 2.5 years now, really helping support nonprofit organizations and life science organizations too in our Sage Intacct practice. I do have an accounting background, got my accounting degree, then worked as a staff accountant for a little over 2 years and have done other temporary roles in accounting finance as well. But I do appreciate being on the side, being able to continue to work with accountants though, and helping them find efficiencies through the implementation of our leading cloud solutions such as Sage Intacct. That's a little bit about me. I'll hand it over to Joe.
Hello, everyone. My name is Joe Giorgio. I am the manager of Intacct Implementations here at Carlson. I have been working with Intacct for about 8 years, implementing mostly not-for-profits. I'd say about 80% of my implementations have been with not-for-profits. Before that, I actually worked for a not-for-profit in the New York area that worked with at-risk youths and their families. I started out as an AP clerk and moved up to accounting manager before moving on to this new life of mine that I call it with implementations.
Great. Thank you for that, Joe. So now to give you a little bit about Carlson Management Consulting. So Carlson Management Consulting was actually founded in 2010 by Ethan Carlson. We're focused on, sorry about that. Looks like my side has changed on its own. Let me pause it. Okay. So as I was saying, we were founded in 2010. We're a consulting firm focused on helping companies scale, increase profitability, efficiency, and improve their overall business performance by providing exceptional business, finance, operation systems expertise, mainly through the implementation of our best-in-class solutions, such as Sage Intacct and Adaptive Insights. I feel like what really sets us apart as a consulting firm would be our consultants. Similar to Joe, they have what we call real-world accounting and finance backgrounds. A lot of them were former CFOs, controllers, VPs of finance, and have literally been in your shoes, understand your pain points. So they're able to bring their expertise and experience in order to help you solve your business issues within your organization. I think our work also speaks for itself. I know it says 550, but we're closing in on 600 financial solution implementations combined with our Sage Intacct and Adaptive Insights practice combined. Do well over 52,000 hours in consulting a year. We've been recognized by the Boston Business Journal and Inc. 5000 as one of the great fastest growing consulting firms. And we kind of like to highlight these awards, not necessarily to toot our own horn, but to highlight the fact that as a consulting firm, we're only as successful as the work we do. If our clients like what we're doing, they give us referrals, etc. So due to the fact that our clients have seen success, we've seen success as well. Now to give you a brief overview on Sage Intacct. Today, why are organizations choosing Sage Intacct? Was primarily because they're the right partner to help you in your success. As you can see in that first piece here, Sage Intacct is the first and only preferred provider of the AI CPA. their only vendor to have earned this endorsement. So literally, people who have basically written their standards on accounting have unanimously said that Sage Intacct is the best ERP solution in the market. Also, Sage Intacct is the undisputed leader in customer satisfaction, as evidenced by their rating of 98 out of 100 on G2 Crowd across over 2,000 reviews. And Sage Intacct, and probably part of the reason Sage Intacct does so well, is that it's literally built by finance experts for finance professionals. Many employees within Sage Intacct right now are CPAs. And lastly, the Sage Intacct was the undisputed leader for innovation for the third year in a row. Intacct received the highest score in core financials for the lower mid-sized enterprise use case by Gartner. So they're really recognized in the industry as a visionary. So a lot of these awards and accolades, as you can see, weren't necessarily, it's not like Sage Intacct is grading their own homework, but these are third-party evaluators that's saying Sage Intacct is one of the best, if not the best, ERP solution in the market right now. And another area that Sage Intacct does well in would be with nonprofits. Right now, nonprofits make up about 1/3 of Sage Intacct's business, and you can see a few examples there. Now, before I hand it off to Joe, we just want to briefly cover what we will see in this demonstration. In the webinar Joe will provide, you'll be able to see how you can track to be billed and billed expenses, how you can add custom fields to grant dimensions and invoices, and lastly, how you can add custom fields onto reports for specific needs. Reports for funds for specific needs. So now I'll stop sharing my screen and hand it over to Joe.
Thank you, Guy. So as Guy said, we are going to now jump into Sage Intacct so you can actually see how someone with Sage Intacct can handle the billing, specifically billing for reimbursement-based contracts. This is where Intacct really shines versus a lot of the other ERPs out there, where it allows you to track what you have billed and what you still need to bill. So as I mentioned, my background is in the not-for-profit space. I worked in a not-for-profit that dealt a lot with the reimbursement-based grants, and there was always a challenge between the accounts payable and accounts receivable departments, making sure that accounts payable put the expenses into the right month, but also that they were not putting expenses in after someone had billed. The reason for we had that issue is because we didn't have a solution like Sage Intacct. So with Sage Intacct, you will be able to see how it doesn't matter if the billing happened before the expense got put in or after. You will still be able to track if you billed it and when you billed it. So you should see Sage Intacct on your screen right now. So the first thing I'm going to do is show you when you're entering an accounts payable bill. It is pretty standard. You pick the vendor, you put in the invoice number, all that fun stuff that you do with any ERP. I'm going to call this program supplies. And program supplies, and I'm going to pick the grant. The grant I'm going to choose is the Travis County grant. The reason for that is because that is one of my grants that I have set up to be what's called a billable grant. That checkbox tells Intacct, track this expense. I want to make sure that I do not lose count that this is an expense that needs to be billed back to the funder. So I'm going to put it in for $300 and submit. It's as simple as that. Everything is exactly like you would enter in any ERP. The difference is that box right there. This is for an accounts payable bill. You also might have a lot of expenses that go through employee reimbursements. Sage Intacct can also handle that under time and expense, staff expense, You can see I'm going to pick someone, pick an expense. Again, pick the same grant just so I can show you how we can bill everything together. So paid for plane ticket to, say, to California. No, that's paid to. That's paid for. Paid to, let's say we flew my favorite Delta. And we did that, let's say, last week. Oops. Travel for on-site visit. And again, you have that same billable flag. Once all those expenses are in, you will immediately, within half a second, not even, you'll be able to bill them out. So I'm going to go to Projects or Grants, Generate Invoice, and I'm going to pick Travis County. And I'm going to click on Preview, just so you can see what I can and cannot bill. If I scroll down, you'll see here are all of the expenses that have been put in that for this grant that need to be billed. So you can see, you can bill everything. It automatically assumes you want to bill everything, but let's pretend I don't want to bill everything. Let's say I don't want to bill this yet. And I don't want to bill this yet for some reason. Let's pretend there is a valid reason that you need to hold off because maybe you don't think it would be an approved expense at this point. Then I'm going to click on Create Invoice. And it has generated that invoice. So if we go and look at a general ledger report, for Travis County, you can see we have all the expenses down below as you would expect. We have the revenue booked, the employee payables, the accounts payable, and the receivables. All of that was automatic. No need to track manually what you billed, what you did not bill. No more downloading Excel, checking off what you billed, then checking it against next month when you're billing to make sure you didn't miss anything. So to show you how you track, because right now everything seems maybe like it's in a black box, there are some reports that you can use. One of my favorite reports is the project or grant progress billing. When you look at this report, I'm going to say I want to see details. You can see what has been billed. So you could see these are all the different grants that I have, and you could see what has been billed to date, remaining billed. So this is all based on the budget. So if we go down to my example, which I thought I had budgeted billing amount on one of my examples, I must not have, but you would see budgeted billing amount. Let's say you had $10,000, you billed 10,000, you have none left. So this is one report that you'd be able to use to track what you billed. Another one, which talks a little bit more closely about our topic, is the unbilled costs by project. This time, let's just focus on the Travis County one, and I want to show details. And you will be able to see, here is, well, let me go back further. Let me do current year. You could see that there are some billable charges, employee bills, employee expenses that are able to be billed. But this doesn't show you, this only shows you what still needs to be billed. That's why there's only two left. maybe you want to see a full picture, what has been billed and what has not been billed. That report, billable cost by customer. Again, let's just focus on my one example, Travis County. Oops, I forgot to set to detail. Here are all the expenses, AP bills, employee reimbursable expenses, if they're billable or not, and if they've been billed. So you can see true, false, true, true, true. So you could see that I did not bill this one and I did not bill this one because it either says false or blank. So those are the two from the other screen that we were looking at. So it's very quick, very easy to see what you've billed and what you have not billed. So let's get a little higher level. Let's look at a different report. Let's go to my report center. And let's look at my grant position report. Grant positions. I'm going to look at all the grants just to show you all of them. Actually, yes. So you can see here are all my grants. Here is the CFDA number, or it can be, this is a custom field, which I'll get into next. Or it can be whatever unique identifier that maybe your funder gives you. Your beginning date, your end date, your revenue, your expenditures, and your remaining funds to be billed. So if you have revenue upfront, restricted revenue upfront that you need to reclass based on the expenditures, this report right here will allow you to see, okay, this is how much we received in revenue. This is how much we have in expenditures. This is how much I have left to record as unrestricted revenue. So let's talk about this right here, because we were talking about another topic we were talking about is your custom fields. So I'm going to go back into Intacct. It's very easy under platform services. It's very easy to add custom fields. Simply click plus, tell it where you want to put it. I want to put this on the project or grant. I want it to be, let's say I want it to be a pick list. And I want to call this reporting frequency. Monthly, quarterly, yearly. Where do I want it? Do I want it required? Do I actually want to show it? Do I want to inactivate it? Where do I want it on what page? I'm just going to put it on the additional info page and save it. Now, when I go to my projects, I'm going to go to my favorite Travis County. And I'm going to go, again, I put it on the additional info. And you can see here, reporting frequency. I am going to say this was monthly. Save. Let's pick another one just to, let's do Templeton. Let's say this one was quarterly. Save. Now I can go through, classify each of my grants as the reporting frequency, and I can put it on these reports also to help me know when I need to bill or send reports related to the billings. So, or drawdowns. So you add that to the report very easily. I'm going to go to reports, report center. I'm going to look for another grant position report. This time, let's do the annual breakdown. I'm going to go to my columns. And you can see, I'm going to add a column. And it's going to be a dimension attribute that comes from the project or grant. Actually, let me put it at the end so I don't mess up any of my formulas. Okay, and again, it's going to be a project dimension attribute on the project or grant. And what is it going to be? It's going to be, I called it reporting frequency. Save and done. It's as simple as that to put on the report. Now, if I run this report, I missed something. Grant and contract funds. Might have put it on the wrong report. Let's just double check. Let me put it on the other report. One without the formulas. I think the formulas are messing up my fields. This is going to be project or grant again. It's going to be reporting frequency. And save and done. Now let's run that report. And you could see quarterly, monthly, and if I filled in all these other ones, you'd see when those were due also. Okay. Just a few more reports and I'll open it up for questions. Some other reports that you might take advantage of is the budget to actual. So you might also want to put a budget to actual to help you with your billing to make sure you're not over billing. You can see here's your budget, here's your actual, here's the variance. And these groups will roll up exactly the way that you have your roll-ups for each individual funder. This can be unique based on the funder. So for example, travel here for this grant is made up of lodging, meals, and other. Transportation though is made up of just a general transportation. Maybe other funders don't have transportation, they roll that all up to travel. Similar with supplies, you have program supplies, but then you have program expenses, which are made up of salaries, premiums. Maybe that's different. Maybe supplies are office supplies, but program supplies go down here. Completely customizable and allows you to track against your budget to make sure you're not overbilling. Last report I want to show you before we get into the one dashboard I want to show you is the Cfa Details Report. Again, these are all custom fields. That can be anything that you need. I'm just using one Cfa as an example because they have a lot of requirements with custom fields. You have an other ID, a CFDA number, program name, because maybe that program, you have multiple grants that fund that one program. We can group, we can sort by the name. Same thing with the agency. If it's being funded, it may be, yes, this is a Travis County, but it's actually coming from HHS via local rewards. All of this can be put together based on custom fields and dollar amounts from actuals. And you saw me poking around at all different reports. I just want to close up by showing a dashboard. All of those reports, along with other pieces of information, can be put on a dashboard. So you could see some of the reports that I showed you. Here's one, are on this dashboard, but I also have some other things on the dashboard that approve purchasing transactions, because maybe you want to make sure that whoever is the grant manager is also approving the purchasing transactions, so you don't go over budget there also. So even before you bill, you want to stop it before you incur the expense, instead of down the line having to figure out, well, where can we move this expense? Because we already paid for it. We have no choice but to, or we already received the goods or services. We have no choice but to pay for it. Now we got to figure out, how do we pay for it, because that grant is over budget now for that line, or maybe that grant is not allowing, maybe that's a disallowable expense for that one grant. Then on the side, you have what's called collaborate. On any given invoice or bill, you can put a little message and it'll show up on the person's dashboard, and then they can click into it and see, what are you talking about? And you can say, oh, that's, you're talking about this. Is this and you can see, looks like a duplicate. No, because the item worked out so well, we bought another. So you can see my questions, or is this for legal fees? And then finally, you have some links. So you have links to, for example, the Texas FRR. So if you are based in Texas or get a grant from Texas and you need to fill out this form, at least I think this is still an active site. There you go. If you need to fill out a form for them and it's on their website, you simply will add the website to the dashboard. Makes it very easy to go and fill out the information. So at this point, I would like to turn it over to any questions. So I think I'll let Guy let me know if there are any questions.
Yes. One question was, is this an extra module in Sage Intacct?
So the answer is yes. There is core part of Sage Intacct, and then there is the not-for-profit grant billing. So if you are a current Sage Intacct customer, that would be an additional module that we would have to implement for you.
Got it. Next question is, do you need to have the time and expense module to use this feature?
Okay, so I showed you the accounts payable module and I showed you the time and expense module. Time and expense module allows you to put in employee reimbursements, or it allows individual users to put in reimbursements. So you don't have to have the time and expense module. You could, like some of the older ERPs, put everything through the accounts payable module, because as you saw with my first example, the accounts payable module does have that. Let me put a little ad. You have that billable flag. So as long as the employee is a vendor and someone else is entering it for them, then yes, you do not need the time and expense module. You can do everything through the accounts payable module, which is part of the core subscription to Intacct.
Okay. And can any type of user use this, enter these types of transactions?
Oh, good question. So if Sage Intacct has different types of users. One is a business user. Those are full users that can do anything you want to give them permissions to do. Those can enter anything that I showed you today. The next type of user is a project manager user. Those can enter expenses for their own employees, or for employees that actually are using the grants that they are the manager of. And then there are employee users who could put in the expenses just for themselves.
Okay. Now, if there are, Joe, if you could stop sharing your screen for a second.
Yes.
Yes, actually, one other question is this being recorded? If so, how can I access it? So yes, this is being recorded, and it will be sent to anybody that had registered to join. Also, I did want to share our contact information as well. If you did like, if you're currently not on Sage Intacct right now, and this is something you're considering, we'd love to have a conversation with you. Or if you already have Sage Intacct and you're maybe in need of some consulting help, again, something we'd definitely be able to help you with.